There are places on this planet that don't want to be found. Places that have been erased from all maps, removed from every official record. Imagine driving across the vast, empty Russian wilderness and stumbling upon a city of 100,000 people. You see apartment blocks, schools, and playgrounds, but when you look at your map, there is nothing but empty forest, no road signs, no GPS signal, no name. You have just entered a Zato, a closed administrative territorial formation, a secret Soviet city that officially never existed. Our first journey takes us to Ozyorsk 16. This was the birthplace of the Soviet atomic bomb. From 1946, it was simply erased from all Soviet records. Scientists, engineers, and their families, hundreds of thousands of people, lived here. Inside the barbed wire, life was a stark contrast to the rest of the USSR. They had imported food, luxury goods, and high salaries. Everything the starving Soviet population could only dream of. But this golden cage came at a steep price. They were forbidden from contacting their outside families. Their letters were censored, their calls monitored, and their names often changed to protect the secret. The paranoia was intense. Children were taught never to speak of their home to outsiders. Ozyorsk 16 was so vital, yet so secret, that it was frequently moved on paper, existing only as a rumor to foreign spies. But the real horror wasn't the isolation. It was the constant threat of nuclear accidents. In 1997, a senior scientist died from a massive radiation leak. His skin turned blue in front of his colleagues. Today, Ozyorsk 16 remains a closed city, still guarded by Rosatom troops. The radiation in its soil, they say, still whispers the names of those who sacrificed their lives for the ultimate weapon. While Ozyorsk was building the fire that could end the world, Sverdlovsk 19 was brewing something much worse, something invisible. Inside these laboratories, Soviet scientists were perfecting a strain of anthrax, a weapon designed not to destroy buildings, but to liquefy the lungs of millions from the inside out. In April 1979, a technician forgot to replace a filter. A cloud of invisible dust drifted over the city. Within days, the citizens began to choke. The government told them it was meat from the market, but the graveyards told a different story. Every night, the KGB arrived to bury the bodies in lead coffins, covered in bleach. There is a place in the Ural Mountains that the Soviet Union tried to kill, only to find that it refused to die. Welcome to Ozyorsk, known for 40 years only as City 40. This isn't just a closed city, it is the most contaminated place on the face of the earth. The residents of City 40 weren't told about the danger. They were called the Children of the Atom. They had a local tradition. They would go to the beach of Lake Karachay to sunbathe. They thought the metallic taste in the air was just the smell of progress. Imagine a mother watching her children play in water that was effectively liquid death. In 1957, the ground shook. A storage tank exploded with the force of 70 tons of TNT, but there were no news reports, no evacuations for days. The Soviet authorities simply watched as a radioactive cloud, twice the size of Maryland, drifted over 270,000 people. They renamed the villages. They erased the maps. To the world, it never happened. Even today, Ozyorsk remains a forbidden city. You still need a special permit to pass through the barbed wire. The lake is now covered in concrete to prevent the dust from blowing away, but the poison is still there, seeping into the groundwater. It's a ticking time bomb that will outlive the Russian Federation itself. The doctors in Ozyorsk were given a strange order. Never use the word radiation in medical files. Instead, they called it vegetative syndrome. People were losing their hair, their skin was changing color, and babies were being born with strange defects. The government didn't treat them, they studied them. Every patient was a data point for the Soviet nuclear program. They were living ghosts, walking through a city that was one giant laboratory. There are rumors of the liquidators before Chernobyl. Men who were sent into the heart of the Mayak plant to clean up spills with nothing but buckets and rags. These men were taken from prisons across the USSR. Their reward? A reduced sentence. but none of them ever walked out to claim it. They weren't buried in cemeteries. Their bodies were processed as radioactive waste and dumped into the same lakes they tried to clean. No names, no graves, just a number in a classified file. Today, Ozyorsk is still a fortress, but the concrete they poured over the lake is cracking. Experts warn that if the Techa River floods, it could carry the silt from Lake Karachay into the Arctic Ocean. The Soviet Union fell decades ago, but their radioactive legacy is just getting started. It is a silent, invisible invasion that no army can stop. But the most chilling part of Ozyorsk wasn't the radiation in the water, it was the radiation in the people. Soviet doctors were prohibited from telling patients they had radiation sickness. Instead, they recorded it as special disease number 1. Pregnant women were encouraged to stay, just so the state could monitor the effects of plutonium on the unborn. These children were born into a world of invisible poison, their DNA rewritten by a government that saw them as mere data points in a global arms race. When the storage tanks exploded in 1957, the KGB didn't evacuate the people. They waited. For 10 days, villagers lived in a cloud of radioactive ash. Then the trucks arrived. Soldiers in gas masks forced thousands of people to destroy their own homes, kill their pets, and bury everything they owned 6 feet underground. Entire villages were plowed into the earth and covered with concrete. If you look at the Urals today, you will see empty meadows that hide the bones of entire communities. You might think this is ancient history. It isn't. Ozyorsk is still a closed city. The checkpoints are still there. The soldiers still carry loaded rifles. The Russian Federation still hides the true death toll of Lake Karachay. Why? Because the secrets of the atom are still the most valuable currency in the world. As long as these gates remain locked, the ghosts of the Soviet past will never rest. But the true horror of Ozyorsk was hidden for 30 years. September 29, 1957. A failure in the cooling system of a radioactive waste tank caused an explosion that could be felt for miles. It was a non-nuclear explosion, but it carried the force of 70 to 100 tons of TNT. A violet-blue cloud rose into the sky, carrying lethal isotopes of strontium and cesium. The Soviet government looked at the cloud, looked at the thousands of innocent villagers in its path, and they chose silence. The cloud created what scientists now call the EURT, the East Urals radioactive trace. It was a strip of land 500 miles long, filled with unsuspecting farmers. They watched as a strange dust settled on their crops and their children's hair. 2 days later, the liquidators arrived. They didn't come to help. They came to destroy. They shot the livestock, burned the wooden houses, and buried the very earth itself. 22 villages were wiped off the map. Not by war, but by a mistake that officially never happened. Even after the fall of the Soviet Union, the files remained classified. Why? Because the Mayak plant is still active. To this day, Ozyorsk produces the fuel for Russia's nuclear teeth. The people there still walk the same streets, still breathe the same air, and still call themselves the chosen ones. They are a living museum of a Cold War that never truly ended. But the lake wasn't the only grave. The Mayak plant began dumping high-level liquid waste directly into the Techa River. This wasn't just a stream, it was the lifeblood for dozens of villages downstream. Pausa 2 seconds. For years, thousands of people used this water for drinking, bathing, and watering their cattle. They didn't know that the water was glowing with strontium-90. By the time the government stepped in to build fences, it was too late. An entire generation had already been marked for death. Their bones were literally becoming radioactive inside Ozyorsk. A secret hospital was established, Hospital Number 1. Its purpose wasn't to cure, but to document. They created a secret archive of human results. Doctors were forced to lie to mothers whose children were born with missing limbs or skin like parchment. They were told it was genetic bad luck. In reality, it was the first time in history that a massive human population was being studied for long-term radiation exposure. They were prisoners of science, trapped in a city that officially did not exist. The surface of Ozyorsk hides only half the truth. Deep within the bedrock of the Ural Mountains, A different kind of project was taking shape. This wasn't about energy or even weapons. It was about the Earth itself. The Soviet Union fell over 30 years ago. The statues of Lenin were pulled down and the maps were rewritten. Yet the gates of Ozyorsk, Arzamas, and Sverdlovsk remain closed. Soldiers still pace the perimeter. The radiation in the soil is still warm. Pauza twos. These cities are not just historical relics. They are monuments to a mindset that valued the power of the atom over the sanctity of human life. We are told the Cold War is over, but as long as these forbidden zones exist, the war hasn't ended. It has only gone underground. Ask yourself, why are the most dangerous secrets kept in the most beautiful forests? Why is the truth always buried under concrete and lead? Pausa 3 seconds. You have just scratched the surface of the files. There are more cities, more shadows, and some of them are much closer than you think. Shapat. Don't look for the light. Look for what the light is trying to hide. This was Shadow Intel. If you are still watching, you are now part of the archive. Subscribe to unlock case number 04. We are going deeper next time. Stay in the shadow.